Well, one of the other cabinet ministers who's been speaking at the conference today is the Education Secretary, Nicky Morgan. She joins me now. Judging by the look on her face, she won't be bidding to join me at Upton Park.
I'm afraid I should be honest, I'm not a great football expert.
Well, that's to your discredit, I'm afraid, Nicky. Now, just before we get on to what you've been saying today, you will have heard Theresa May's speech. It is what everybody's talking about at this conference. Several of my friends who, shall we say, are on the modernising wing of the party, which I think I would probably place you on as well, they're struggling to defend the speech. They think it struck entirely the wrong tone, and it was far too anti-immigration. What's your take?
Well, my take on it is that there's no doubt that one of the issues raised on the doorstep with us during the campaign and since has been immigration. People do want to see immigration being controlled. They want us to know who's coming into the country, why they're coming in, how long they're going to be here for. But I also think that we have as a country a proud tradition of offering asylum and refuge to many people. I represent a part of the country in the East Midlands where many people have come. They've based their homes, their families here, they've built businesses, and they've also then employed lots of other people.
So you would say they were a benefit to this country, because Theresa in her speech said that there's been close to zero benefit from immigration, which I thought was an astonishing thing for a Home Secretary to say.
Well, look, I didn't hear all the detailed speech. I'm not quite sure of the context, but I do think that our country has been enriched by having people coming and living here, definitely.
Well, I don't think that needs any context. If a Home Secretary says there has been close to no benefit from immigration, that kind of speaks for itself. Aren't you slightly disappointed in Theresa May? I mean, you were selected as a candidate roughly the same time I was, back in 2003. It was the year after she'd made the Nasty Party speech, and yet she, in one speech here, she has enabled people to think of the Conservative Party as the Nasty Party again. You must be tearing your collective hair out.
Well, I think it's a great shame if people base their thoughts of the party on one particular speech. But, last year I got commentary, shall we say, for saying that we have always, as politicians, to be careful about always being defined by what we're against and not what we're for. And we're going to come on to talk about education speech this afternoon, because I was trying very much to set out what we are for. And I do think that we have to be very careful that if we are setting ourselves up for fights with groups of people or others, actually that's what defines us, and that's not what we're about. What we want is a cohesive society.
But that's what she did this morning, and judging from what you just said, I take it that you're slightly at odds with her. You do like to see a more positive speech.
Well, I think there is a positive case to be made for having a multi-racial, multi-faith country, which we have done successfully, I think, in this country. Again, representing Leicestershire, as I do, it is a very diverse community. But that's not to say, I think the heart of Theresa's speech was right in the sense it was about controlling immigration. That is what people do want to see.
Now, moving on to your speech, you made great emphasis on rooting out bad schools. How do you define a bad school? Because everyone, I think, would probably have a different definition of what a bad school is.
Well, obviously we've got the new education bill, and that very much relies on, firstly, Ofsted. Obviously we'll go around and inspect schools. So if a school is in special measures, which we regard as failing, then actually we will make sure that that is teamed up with a strong academy sponsor. But also coasting schools, those schools where children are not making the progress that they should be making, and we'll look at 3 years worth of results. But you're right, there's a variety of different reasons why schools can be failing or not doing the best for their pupils. There can sometimes be issues around management, senior leadership, not being able to recruit enough good teachers. And we know, again, in my speech I said there were certain parts of the country, rural areas, coastal areas, where we know that recruitment can be an issue. And sometimes there's just schools where the expectations of students just aren't high enough.
What about the issue of accountability? Because you attacked your new shadow, Lucy Powell, who's just been appointed to that job, saying she wants to bring sort of politicians back into schools and make them accountable. But at the moment, your policy would seem to lead to only the head teacher being accountable for the performance of that school.
No, I think it's everybody. We are very focused on outcomes for schools, and actually, although I think the head teacher or leadership is very important in a school, they then run a team, and that team has to have a very clear idea of the vision. The best schools I go to, everybody knows exactly what the school is about. They're all working towards supporting pupils to get the best possible outcomes. I think the point is that actually what makes a difference in schools, what pulls up the standards, is the people who are at the front line, the heads, the teachers, the governors. I don't think that's what Lucy Powell or the Labour Party are talking about. They're talking about having other people in the sort of dead hand weight of politicians and bureaucrats making the difference in schools. I don't think that's what makes a difference. It's people right at the front line. We think they should run the schools.
Do you want to guess what my final question is going to be?
Let me think. Possibly about the future of the party?
Well done. But you kicked this off, didn't you, last week, when you sort of seemed to indicate that you might well be a candidate when the time comes. A, will you be a candidate? Or B, do you slightly regret your intervention a week ago?
No, because I was asked a question and I gave a straight answer. And if that's
so will you be
news,
a candidate? Straight answer?
Well, I'm going to look. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. I have said that I think there should be a woman.
Well, there will be Theresa May.
Well,
what have you got that Theresa May hasn't?
Oh, I'm not going to get into starting to compare. That's for other people to talk about. What I would say is, look, I've been a member of the party for 26 years. To be considered to be leader would be a huge privilege. Let's see what happens when the time comes and who's contenders. And I think there'll be the good news is there's lots of really good people in the party, any one of whom I think could be leader.
Well, you haven't dampened down speculation with that answer. You do realise that.
Well, look, I think it's for others to judge. I've got 3 jobs at the moment that are going to keep me pretty busy, being a Member of Parliament for Loughborough, Minister for Women and Equality, Secretary of State for Education. I'm going to focus on those.
Nicky Morgan, thank you very much.
You.
I decided to do it because it is an important subject in relation to members of the public. But obviously, of course, a lot of attention has been focused this summer on the migration crisis in Europe, on the issue of Syrian refugees. And that's why I devoted quite a portion of my